Louisiana Legends is made possible by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana. This informative, educational series enables us to discover, through the accomplishments of our fellow Louisianians, the unique character of the state so proudly served by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana for more than 65 years.
If you can take the measure of a man by those he calls his friends, then surely the measure of a businessman is taken by those he calls his employees. According to the men and women who work at Bollinger Shipyards, Boysie Bollinger measures up pretty well.
Boysie, he's a genuine guy. He's genuine. When he says he likes quality built in, he means it. He really means it. It's from the heart. Boysie comes out here. He comes out, he sees what people do. He talks to people. He's not one of these executives that stays behind a closed door all the time.
Donald Boysie Bollinger was born and grew up in the South Louisiana he still calls home.
Boysie's name is Donald, just like my father, although he's not a junior. But my mother was so happy to have a son. Their children were born late in life. And she used to call him Boy after the little character in the Tarzan movies, and that eventually became Boysie and never left him. Everyone knows him as Boysie.
Bollinger Shipyards is a family business, started by Boysie's father, Donald Bollinger, known to his employees as Mr. Donald. After earning a business degree at the University of Southwestern Louisiana, Boysie came to work here in his early 20s. Today, he's chairman of the board and CEO of this full-service marine construction and repair company.
Without his own innate abilities, there's a high probability that Bollinger Shipyards would not even be here today. Without his own initiative, the company possibly would not have survived the downturns in the mid and late 80s in the oil field.
Based in Lockport, Bollinger Shipyards is the area's largest employer, but the company's impact is felt far beyond its headquarters. For example, United States Coast Guardsmen will patrol America's shores in Coast Guard cutters just like this one, built right here.
He single-handedly secured the Coast Guard contract that put the work in the yard and provided employment for the local families that brought us through that difficult time.
It's the best place, best shipyard I've ever worked, ever. And I've worked at 3 others. They take a lot more pride in what they do individually. It's not just a job for a lot of them. They put their heart and soul into it.
And that attitude, the desire to do the best possible job all the time, comes from the top down.
Not too many places you work where the man that owns the company is going to come out and shake hands with all his employees and know what's going on at the time, you know.
Boysie Bollinger walks in powerful circles. He counts among his friends Louisiana governors, past and present, and he's rubbed elbows with several presidents before, during, and after their days in the White House. But his real friends are right here, hard at work, helping their boss continue the astounding success of Bollinger Shipyards.
This is just a real good place to work. There's a lot of family here at Bollinger, and we really take care of one another. And that means a lot more to some than money.
I love his passion about everything he does. He works hard, he plays hard, whether he's fishing at Grand Isle with all the family or leading one of these great groups. His passion and enthusiasm is so catching.
Respect for the work and respect for the workers. A commitment to the continued success of the family business. These are the qualities that have helped Donald Boysie Bollinger earn the name Louisiana Legend. Join host Gus Weill as we meet a true Louisiana legend.
I am in Lockport, Louisiana, and my guest is not only Mr. Lockport, but he could easily be Mr. Louisiana in several other states. He's Donald T. Boysie Bollinger, who told me it's okay to call him Boysie. He prefers that. It's good to be with you today.
Good being with you, Gus.
Boysie, when it first dawned on you that this monumental enterprise, the Bollinger Shipyards, that one day you were going to have to run it, how did that hit you? And when did it hit you?
Well, actually, Gus, it wasn't a monumental enterprise. I grew up in this business when it was very small. I spent my whole life here, my whole career here. And I don't think of it as a huge enterprise. I think of it as something that we continued to grow over those 50 some odd years. Obviously, I wasn't here on day one. I was here about day four, year four. This business was about 4 years old when I was born. But it was a pretty small business when I came in, and when I finished school, it was very small. We had one shipyard, small, on the banks of Bayou Lafourche. It was a substantial small business for a small town. But we've since expanded it pretty regular and pretty consistently, and we've grown to be a substantial economic
You've got
engine.
shipyards virtually all over the place.
Yeah, we have 14 locations between Houston and South Texas, all the way to East New Orleans, and pretty much all along the Gulf Coast in between.
Was that expansion necessary? I'm talking about the different locations. It looks like that would present huge problems.
Well, it does. It's challenges. But my father asked me one time, what was I trying to create? What kind of monster was I trying to build here? And I said, you know, we have never varied much from the original business we started in. We started in shipbuilding and repair, and we're still in shipbuilding and repair. We're big in it. We're very large in repair. We have 12 locations that do repair work with 42 dry docks, which we're by far the largest in the country, doing the size ships we do in the repair business. But we didn't set out necessarily to be the biggest. We just set out to be the best. And of course, we found opportunities that we thought would better serve our customers, and we took advantage of those and continue to grow our abilities to help our customers.
How many employees do the shipyards have?
We have probably close to 3,000 now.
Among them, you have a large number, this is quite interesting, of naval architects.
Well, we don't have a large number of 3,000, but we have a large number of naval architects. By design, we're in the shipbuilding and repair business, and it takes that type of engineer to do a lot of the work. We also have mechanical, structural, electrical, motion, sound, on and on in engineering. We're very lucky, very, very lucky to have a great school of architecture, naval architecture at UNO. And most of our graduates come from UNO, so we're very fortunate to have it right here in our backyard.
You went, of course, to my old hometown, Lafayette. You're a Southwestern graduate.
Yeah, actually, my sisters and I all went to Lafayette. It was my father's idea of us going away to school, and of course, in those days, the highways were pretty weak in Louisiana. It was a pretty good trip to go to Lafayette from Lockport. So actually, we took the train quite often.
Really?
The train, we'd go to Schriever and catch the train and take the train to Lafayette to go to school. But it was about as far away as I had been at that stage of my life, and it was like going to any other school in the nation as far as distance was concerned. So Lafayette was going away to school for us, as opposed to going to Nicholls, which is something we're very endeared to and we are very supportive of.
Boysie, you said something that really startled me, and anything about Louisiana I love to hear. You told me that we're one of the largest shipbuilding states in the nation.
Yeah, you don't think about it because you think of the Newport Newses in Virginia, or the Bath Iron Works in Maine, or the NASCOs in San Diego being shipbuilding companies because they're very large in one location, or Ingalls and Pascagoula. But when you think about it, the shipbuilding is twofold. One is the ships that are built for the Navy and the blue water ships that transit the oceans hauling freight. And we have a shipyard here, Avondale in New Orleans, that's extremely large and strong amongst its competitors. But when you think about the shipyards that we're compared to, we have the Mississippi River, the Port of New Orleans, the Gulf Intercoastal Waterway, the Central Gulf of Mexico, which supports all the oil and gas drilling, basically that's offshore in America. You have a tremendous number of shipyards that support that activity. And that's all based in Louisiana. Fourchon has become the port for deep water drilling in America. So consequently, a lot of activity surrounds this geographic area, and Louisiana is the epicenter of it.
My goodness, you mentioned Fourchon, which to men, you know, this program is seen statewide. a lot of folks will have no concept of where you're even talking about, and yet it plays such a role in that industry.
Gus, I just finished spending chairman of the Port of New Orleans.
Yes, sir.
So I'm very familiar with ports, and it's amazing, and the port professionals that I deal with at the Port of New Orleans are amazed constantly when they see the activity surrounding Port Fourchon. They're amazed, number one, that we have no real highway system or rail system to support it, and yet the activity and the growth in that port is phenomenal.
Let's talk for a moment about a subject that's very distant to you, and I know I'm coming up with it. Politics. Boysie, how'd the family get so, I'm going to use a cuss word, damn deep into Republican politics?
Well, actually, it didn't start out as Republican politics. My father ran for the Senate twice unsuccessfully as a Democrat, and switched over actually in the early 60s to become a Republican. That was not an easy decision. There were no Republicans. But we always felt, and he always felt, and he endeared it to his family, that we should have good people in office. And if you weren't willing to get behind good people, you had to live with the government you had. So he very much was focused on it, and we have all been very focused on it.
You're interested in it.
I'm very interested and been very involved in politics, but primarily from trying to get good people elected. And actually, after that, I'm very disappointed. Often they want you to help them. I would like to just let them get elected and let them leave me alone because I could do better running my business.
Believe me, you will never be let alone. That's one guarantee I can make you. What kind of guy was Ronald Reagan? What'd you think of him?
Ronald Reagan was probably the most charismatic president I've ever been around, or person I've ever been around. I've known a number of presidents, and most of them have been just people like you and I, but when you walked into a room with Reagan, you were somewhat mesmerized just being in his presence. He commanded that. He commanded respect. You would kind of fumble on words when he asked you a question because you just was speaking to a guy, at least in my case, that I had a tremendous amount of respect for, a guy who had unbelievable vision for America, where he wanted to bring it. And he didn't worry about the details too much. He made sure he had a good team around him, and he did. I mean, he was very successful as president as far as bringing an end to the Cold War, reestablishing people's pride in America.
How about President Bush, the father I'm talking about?
President Bush and I became very good friends, primarily when he was vice president. It's a role that he was very personable at, and we became he came to Lockport actually,
really?
And did a commissioning of a fleet of boats we were building, and we got to be good friends, and obviously I got to be friends with his son during his tenure as vice president and president.
Now,
but Bush was a guy that you could sit with like we are and tell jokes or sit around a campfire and shoot the bull, and you didn't have that mesmerizing feeling. He wanted to know what you thought. You told him how you felt. It didn't matter if he agreed or not. You'd get in debates with him. He was just a real good guy.
But President Reagan kind of set you back on your heels.
President Reagan was mesmerizing as far as he had a presence about him, I think is the best word to use.
Now tell us about the present President of the United States, whom none of us know. You do know. What kind of guy?
He's an amazing guy. I mean, George Bush is probably one of the few presidents who never really thought about being president. And I truly believe that. I mean, he had no intention after his father left office, I think, to become president. He was very interested in running his baseball team. That was his goal in life, to be a manager of a professional baseball team. And of course, when they sold the team, he lost his job, saw maybe an opportunity to get involved in politics. He had only run for Congress once in the 70s and lost. And as opposed to Al Gore, who he ran against, they both ran for office the first time in 1976. Of course, Gore won and Bush lost. And it was amazing that their lives basically paralleled each other for their whole career, but Gore was in politics, Bush wasn't until he became governor of Texas.
What kind of guy is he to be with?
He is very relaxed to be around. I mean, he's more so than his father. Of course, we much more peer in age.
Yes.
And we have a lot of the same likes and dislikes. We've spent probably more one-on-one time together, having interesting conversations, actually. Again, I met George Sr., George Bush. We call him Bush 1 and Bush 2. Bush won when he was vice president, so he was already in an extremely important role in America and in politics, one that very few people get a chance to be in, vice president, as opposed to his son, who I got to know while he was vice president and president, but he was kind of like us, an ordinary Joe who obviously had a very famous father, but didn't consider himself to be anything that none of us were. And actually, I think he's still like that as president. Obviously, he has a lot more security, he has a lot more issues to deal with, but whenever I see him, he treats me just like a Boysie. He calls me Boysie. He'll come across the room if he sees me in a room to make sure that I'm greeted properly and seen properly, and he just makes you feel very, very warm and friendly. And that's the kind of person he is, sincerely.
Did you ever, and you're in Washington a lot because a lot of y'all's business emanates with the Congress and the Defense Department. Did you ever get to meet or get to know President Clinton?
No.
You never did?
Never met him one-on-one. Never. And actually, I had a number of opportunities that weren't convenient. No, nor did I have a huge desire to meet him.
I understand. Now, how about Dick Cheney?
Dick Cheney, actually, I was chairman of Cheney's campaign in his short-lived run for the presidency when Bob Dole ran. I had a great admiration of Cheney watching his career, got to know him fairly well when he was Secretary of Defense under Bush, and obviously liked him enough to support him for president when he ran. Of course, he had a few health problems at the time, decided he wasn't going to make that race, and I didn't see him much. Then he became chairman of Halliburton. Halliburton at the time was a very good customer of ours, and we had a number of ongoing relationships with him. So I stayed in touch with him through that period. And of course, I was very elated when now President Bush picked him as his running mate. So I think Cheney is going to be a wonderful vice president, very much like Bush's father was, very subservient to the president, very much a team player.
I think he's irreplaceable.
He's a wonderful executioner of Bush's ideas, and especially in personnel.
Did you find the young Bush, our present president, to be a fairly intelligent man?
Extremely.
You see, that's the part that either we've been brainwashed or and that's possible. That's my trait.
Well, Gus, when you think about it, even in the campaign, I was having a conversation with some of your cohorts. Everybody expected Bush to blow up and make the mistakes and lose the election. And on the contrary, Gore is the one who blew up, made the mistakes, and lost the election. Gore had a lot of errors, but Bush almost had a flawless campaign. He never lost sight of his vision. He was very committed, and he's a very strong leader. He expects loyalty and demands loyalty. He doesn't mind changing people out if they're not carrying that load.
He will.
And of course, his success as a leader is going to be surrounding himself with good, functional people. And I'm proud to have supported him, and I'm proud to be his friend, and will support him and continue to support him.
How about Mike Foster?
Mike's a character. He's a wonderful friend. We got to know each other basically fishing together.
And you say you're a little better at it than him.
I said shooting.
Oh, you were better
I'm a lot
hunter.
better fishing than he is. I'm a little better hunter than he is.
I told you I was going to tell him.
I have to take a little advantage on age on that one.
He'll get a kick out of that. I have found him to be a delightful man, and I think he's been a hell of a good governor.
Honest.
Painfully.
And so is Bush. You know, one of the things I admire about Bush is he doesn't tell you what's political expedient. He tells you the facts and the situation he has to deal with, which is sometimes what the American people or the Louisiana citizens don't see, all the facts surrounding the decisions that the chief executives have to make. Mike Foster has been wonderful about making the hard decisions, not worrying about loyalty, very much like Bush in that regard. If somebody's not willing to toe his line, he needs to find somebody who's willing to toe his line. So he doesn't mind changing.
Those guys really don't have time to chase after anybody. I'm sure you don't within your own enterprise.
Exactly.
What are your hobbies? How does Boysie Bollinger relax?
Actually, I like to fish and I like to hunt, but like we were talking earlier, Gus, you know, I've kind of overcommitted myself at some time. I love running this business on the one hand, and I'm very civically involved. And
you're the head of so many things, and you're on so many boards.
I think the thing I've enjoyed the most of all the things I've led is the D-Day Museum. It's a wonderful tribute to the greatest generation. It's amazing how much I've learned about what those people sacrificed for our freedom, and I can't go to that museum without running into World War II veterans and watching them react to their families. And in many cases, 55 years later, having them speak for the first time to their families about their experiences in World War II. That's been an extremely fulfilling job I've had. But the dock board has taken a lot of my time. I've enjoyed that. I'm chairman of the Business Council in New Orleans. New Orleans has a lot of issues always on the table that I have to be involved with. So leisurely, I guess I like it because I keep doing it. But I'm chairman of the Nicholls University Foundation. And
I
Nicholls,
love Nicholls and Dr. Io. I'm just crazy about them.
Dr. Io's done a wonderful job.
They're dear friends.
He's going to be here at 1 o'clock, actually.
And they've turned into a heck of a school.
And it's been a very good school. For our area, obviously, it's a rural school, but we're a rural business. And so having that close to home availability is just wonderful.
Do you hire many of their graduates?
As many as we can.
Really?
We have scholarships there. We endowed a chair there in business administration, and we have a number of scholarships we give to Nicholls. So we're very, very active. We also elated that they have a culinary school, John Falls Culinary Institute at Nicholls, which has been wonderful for this rural area, producing some great chefs. All the restaurants got better. They were already good, but they all got better.
And you and I know we have the best food in the world. That
bar none.
None. My son lives in New York. He told me he hasn't had a good meal since he left here. Sauce piquant, gumbo, and such like. What is the future for the Bollinger Shipyards?
Well, I think the past is a good indication of the future. I think we're in an industry that's still exciting, especially right now with the shortage of oil and gas, and Louisiana is at the epicenter of a lot of that for America. So I think in the oil and gas side, we have a bright future. I think the military side, we have built every patrol boat that's gonna have built every patrol boat owned by the Coast Guard and every patrol boat owned by the U.S. Navy. So that means we've built every patrol boat owned by the U.S. government.
How many have y'all built?
We will have built 115 right here on the banks of Bayou Lafourche, and nobody thinks of us even as a patrol boat builder. We're the largest patrol boat builder in the world. We're very, very much at the front of everything we do, by far the largest repair yard in the world as far as our size ships. So I think we're just going to continue to grow our business and do what we do well. And can support our customers because they're all optimistic about their future, and we want to be part of that success.
You must be a pretty fair country salesman, too.
I'm a little Cajun from Bayou Lafourche.
I love that.
I learned some of that from you, Gus.
Shame on you, Boysie. But I got to tell you, though, to build an enterprise like you all have done, first, of course, the old folks, some who are no longer with us, but then for you, when you took it over to expand where y'all are now virtually all over the place, that's a heck of an accomplishment.
Well, you have two sides of running a business, Gus. You have the revenue side, which is your relationship with your customers and your ability to get work. But more importantly, you have the production side, and that's people. We can all buy tools, but getting people to run tools and work is extremely important in today's society, as it is in the workforce. We spend a lot of time making sure that our relationship with our employees is strong. My whole board of directors every year meets with every single employee in this company. Now, if you think that's not exhausting for the board,
my gosh,
it's unimaginable. We have crew changes in Texas City, Texas at midnight. It's not exactly the best place to be at midnight, and we're there with the whole board having a dialogue with our employees because we care about what they think.
Is that your innovation?
Yes, it is.
Because I've never heard of it.
It is my innovation. I
And
learn so much by knowing what's important to our people. And by learning that, you can better address what's their issues. I mean, my negotiation skills have always been listen first what's important to your customer, try to match to that what's important to you, and usually you end up with a very happy situation. It's no different negotiating with your employees.
Well, Boysie, on behalf of your fellow citizens of Louisiana, there are about 4.5 million of us, you and your family have contributed so very much to this state, and we don't have the time for me to talk about your civic endeavors. I mean, it would be enough for 100 men, but I want to thank you, and you've been a wonderful host.
Thank you, Gus, and I'm honored by the award.
Good, sir.
Louisiana Legends is made possible by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana. This informative educational series enables us to discover, through the accomplishments of our fellow Louisianians, the unique character of the state so proudly served by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Louisiana for more than 65 years.
For a copy of this program, call 1-800-973-7246 or go online to www.lpb.org.